time it was, and what a time it was. It was a time of innocence, a time of confidences. Long ago it must be, I have a photograph. Preserve your memories, they're all that's left you. Time it was, and what a time it was. Earlier this week, Kathy Anoye brought Betty Weigel by the church as one by one we gathered to place remembrances on the ofrenda. Betty is here this morning as one of our vergers, and Betty, it is so good to see you and have you here. When I heard that she was here, I went to the sacristy and stood at the door as we talked, distant and masked. And Betty was carefully, lovingly cutting some roses. And there was a tag on each one. I couldn't see what it said. We talked, but her attention never wavered from those roses. And I left, and a few minutes later, she came out with 3 roses, which one by one were lovingly laid on the ofrenda. And I went over and looked at them and read the tag on each one of them. Roman Borek, Donna McElroy, Joan Mitchell. 3 members of the Altar Guild that have died in the past year. 3 beloved of Betty, 3 beloved of this community, 3 beloved of me. And as I looked at each name, a picture flashed in my mind. I could see them. I could hear them. Roman smiling sweetly. Donna scurrying about, making sure everything was just right. The crackle of Joan's voice. Standing in this space they loved, this space they cared for, this space their faithfulness and servants' hearts consecrated again and again and again. Standing in this space, it almost felt like they were still here. Roman sitting over there waiting for the 7:30 service to start. Donna straightening the altar cloth or chatting with the Longs and the Careys before the 9. Joan slowly making her way down this side aisle and giving me a wink as I walked by. That was just yesterday, wasn't it? Now, Roman died last December. We had at least some warning. He had been sick. There was at least some chance to try to say goodbye. But Donna and Joan, how were we to know? How were we to know when we left this sacred space on Sunday, March 8th, that we were saying goodbye? Goodbye to each other for nearly 8 months now. How were we to know that when we said to Donna and Joan and Dorothy and others, see you next Sunday, that we were really saying goodbye? If I had known, I would have taken a moment to say thank you. A moment to say, I love you. A moment and a moment and a moment more just to be and appreciate the sacrament of their presence. Death happens. And sometimes we know it is coming, and sometimes it is the thief in the night. Death happens. It is natural. But what is not natural is not being able to be with each other when it happens. What is not natural is not being able to come together and grieve when it happens. And that is the deep offense of this pandemic. We are approaching 250,000 deaths and counting from COVID, but the tragedy is not just that obscene number never had to be that high. It is the beautiful images of God who have died alone. It is the grieving that has happened and that is happening alone. It is the beloveds we can only visit every other week for 2 hours or on Zoom or through a window that we wonder if we will ever see, touch, hold again. It is natural for us to grieve. It is not natural for us to grieve alone. It is just wrong. Simon and Garfunkel's words from Bookends have been echoing in my ear as I have watched this ofrenda take shape. Long ago it must be. I have a photograph. Preserve your memories. They're all that's left you. Is that true, I wonder? Photographs, memories, is that all that is left? We live in a culture that worships the new and discards the old, a culture of advancement through disposability. When we do appeal to our ancestors, it is more often than not the selective amnesia of nostalgia and the retrograde imprisonment of originalism. Yet we come together today, this day, every year to proclaim our hope that there is more, that we are left with what much more than photographs and memories. That our ancestors are with us. They still whisper, they still speak, they still sing. Our ancestors are still with us, for they are, as Toni Morrison wrote, an ever-widening circle of hope. And we come together each year to sing with them, to sing their song of hope, hope for a different way of being, of living, a song of the way things ought to be instead of the way things are, a song of the revolutionary Jesus that 2 centuries later we still sing. Blessed are the poor, the pure in heart, the merciful, those who hunger and thirst for righteousness and are persecuted for righteousness' sake. Blessed are the meek. Blessed are those who mourn, for they will be comforted. The Beatitudes of Christ are our vision, handed down from generation to generation, from ancestor to ancestor, of a blessed life and a worldwide beloved community of creation. The Beatitude life is both journey and destination. The Beatitude life is what we reach for, dream of, and trust that every generation can learn to love into being just a little bit more. The Beatitudes are not just a reading from an ancient text. The words are imprinted in our DNA, and they are cried out from the very ground. They are the labors of the ancestors. They are the cries of the ancestors. They are the shoulders on which we stand and the stars for which we reach. This ofrenda, the photographs, the memories, they are not all that is left us. The images we place here and the ones of whom we have no images or even memories, these are the ones from whom we came, the ones who walked among us, walked with us, who laughed with us and wiped away our tears. They still whisper, they still speak, they still sing. They see parts of ourselves that we fear to show, that we long to keep hidden, parts of ourselves that maybe we fear may have died with them, but have not. We need to tell their stories, and not just because past is prologue. We need to tell their stories because they are sacred, because they are us. Because in telling their stories, we remember. We are literally put back together. In sharing their stories, we are remembered, and we remember who we once were and who we will be once more. We bear the mark of the ancestors. We carry them in our bodies. What has shaped them has shaped us, and we are shaping our descendants every moment of every day. Like the young jazz musician who takes a lick from Grant Green that has been bouncing around her brain ever since her mama played it on a record while she was nursing her and rocking her to sleep. And without even knowing where it came from, creates a riff that in some club, some night, years later, bounces among her and the rest of her trio and births new musical possibilities and makes lovers swoon and tired feet long to dance. We are artists jamming with the instruments of our lives and taking old standards, licks and riffs of justice, compassion, mercy, and love and creating life anew. Roman, Donna, Joan, Dorothy, Louis Crew Clay and Barbara Harris, Anthony McLean and Breonna Taylor, John Prine and Bruce Williamson, our mothers and fathers, brothers and sisters, mentors and students, lovers and friends. They are more than memories and photographs. They are with us still. They are part of us. Their voice is comfort and challenge. They are our gadfly and our muse. And someday we will join them. Someday our photos will take their place on this ofrenda. And so today, while we remember and are remembered, while we share stories and shed tears, while we sit in silence and strain our eyes and ears to remember their faces and hear their voices just one more time, we look in our hands and we see that we are holding the gift of their labor and love. And we ask ourselves and one another, what will we do with it? How will we live? What will we stand for? How will we love? What stories will our descendants tell? What will our riffs and licks become on their instruments? We breathe in that thin space between ancestor and descendant, holding the hand of each. We are the electrical conduits of history, the charge passing through us, never staying still. In us, we carry all history that has ever been and all history that has yet to be written. It is in us. Can we listen and learn? It is in us. Can we sing and proclaim? We are born of the love of 1,000 generations, and thousands more are waiting, and it is all contained in this life, in these bodies, in this moment. Thich Nhat Hanh writes, we have to live in a way that liberates the ancestors and the future generations who are inside of us. Joy, peace, freedom, and harmony are not individual matters. If we do not liberate ourselves, our ancestors, we will be in bondage all our life, and we will transmit that to our children and grandchildren. Now is the time to do it. To liberate them means to liberate ourselves. As long as the ancestors in us are still suffering, we cannot really be happy. If we take one step mindfully, freely, happily touching the earth, we do it for all previous and future generations. They all arrive with us at the same moment, and all of us find peace at the same time. The bondage of thousands of years shackles our wrists. The silent tears of middle passages well up in our eyes, and the rhythms of liberation are the drumbeats of our heart, the groove that was laid down by the ancestors that still drives us to dance, to create, and to be free. We are not alone, no matter how lonely we may feel. We are not powerless, no matter how vulnerable we may feel, because our very bodies carry the stories, the songs, the very life of all who have gone before and all who ever will be. Let us heed Maya Angelou as she urges, bring them on stage with you. Let their distant voices and timbre add strength to your words. In the face of hatred, may Romans smile be our love that will triumph over it. In the face of despair, may Donna's faithfulness be our strength that will get us through it. In the face of seemingly insurmountable challenges, may Joan's wry wit be the wisdom and humor that reawaken in us the power of joy and wonder and hope. Time it was. Yes, what a time it was. And time it is, and time it will be, for we have more than photographs and memories. We are the living legacy of those who have gone before and the artists of the future for those who are to come. We are as they are, as our descendants will be, the furthest horizon of God's ever-widening circle of hope. Amen.